Hello, Professor Kennedy and everyone else. Today, for my university class, Marlowe versus Shakespeare, I'm going to be making a video essay about a little bit about Christopher Marlowe and a little bit more about his play Edward II and a lot more about Shakespeare's, one of the main themes that I've identified in Shakespeare, which I think is very, very interesting. Christopher Marlowe was much more famous, much more successful, much more well-loved by the public than by this young, university, untried and untested William Shakespeare. Marlowe was the man at a time when being gay was, according to my professor, punishable by the most horrific circumstances you could imagine. Christopher Marlowe was gay. What was his life like? God knows. Honestly, who could possibly know what the world looked like and smelled like 500 years ago? It was an odorous place. Even though he was gay, he was still one of the most celebrated playwrights of his time. And he wrote Edward II. Edward II is a play about a British king. I'm sorry to say, Professor Kennedy, but when it comes to the lineage of the British monarchy, I am just really cannot seem to generate any enthusiasm for it. I do love history. I suppose that's the thing with history, is that you need good history teachers to bring it to life. And Professor Kennedy is actually one of the good ones. He brings it to life. He has a talent for the vicious. He likes to go into great gruesome detail about the punishments for treason, which were horrifying. Edward II is a play about King Edward II, who was very, very gay. He had this overwhelming obsession with his lover, Gaveston. It ruined him as a king because he was too overwhelmed with his own love, his own obsession, his own gratification for his lover, Gaveston. And Gaveston, I think that he was a bit manipulative. He knew the rewards he was getting. He was quite pleased with his elevated position in society. And yeah, Edward II was very negligent because Gaveston, all right, maybe it's wrong to say lover. I don't think anybody's going to tick me off for describing him as Edward's lover. Edward II, he gives him all of these titles. All right, I'm going to make you Minister of War, and I'm going to make you the Earl of Gloucestershire, or Earl of Kent, or Earl of... You're gonna be the man that does the thing that gets you the money. Like later in the play, one of Edward's dukes or earls, they complain that like he's been giving him these gems that are worth the monarchy's reserves of wealth that keeps them in power, pretty much. He's been giving them to this lover boy as trinkets. And so what happens is that people turn against Edward II because they see that he's too gone on his lover, and it's causing him to make bad decisions. Like one of the most critical points in the play for me was they come to Edward II, they say, well, look, we're going to lose this territory in France. Now, my history is really very poor, but I know that England and France and Spain were viciously competing for territory. England was constantly under attack of invasion, and people were trying to claim some of the British land to get a foothold, to be able to overtake, these what are really quite small islands. The British army was quite strong and fearsome, and they were taking their own bits of land. And so it was this constant battle of, France, England, Spain, bits of territory. And at one point, they're saying that they're about to lose some territory that they've gained in France. What is the... Normandy. Edward II, like, he doesn't give a shit. He just, don't worry, I'll talk to the King of France. It'll be the easiest thing in the world for me to placate, mollify the King of France. And we don't have to worry about the King of France, and we don't have to worry about Normandy, because we're worried about me and Gaveston is what we're worried about. That is his destruction. What I want to talk about in terms of Shakespeare's theme, I'm a little bit proud of this, I have to say, because I've never heard this from anyone before, but I think if you start to look, and we will look first at Christopher Marlowe's play, Edward II, that if you look at several of the other Shakespearean plays, you will see that this is really an overwhelming theme. I call it the negligence of the acceptance of power, or the refusal of the acceptance of power. Let's start here with Edward II, that he is the king and all of his advisors and his wife are compelling him, please don't worry about your boyfriend and please rule the kingdom. And he doesn't give a shit, honestly doesn't. He is so infatuated with his lover that he's quite prepared to let the entire British Empire go to hell as long as he can be happy with his friend. As a comparison, like if we look at Titus Andronicus comes back from the wars. He is a grisly old veteran. As he says in the play, that he has buried 21 sons in his war against the Goths, barbarian hordes at the gate. And he comes back to Rome, and these two sons, their fathers died. He was Caesar, and Saturnilius and Bassianus, they're arguing about who should be king. Titus Andronicus comes in, and he's this veteran of the wars, and all of the public say, we want this guy to be the Caesar. He's the king. Titus Andronicus says, no, I'm an old soldier. All I want now is to retire, to enjoy my last years in Rome. Let that guy over there be king. And immediately, this is Act 1, Scene 1, immediately Titus Andronicus, like it's a roller coaster ride downhill. As soon as he gives up the obligation to accept the leadership, as soon as he says no, everything goes to shit. And that is, like, you could see this in several other plays in Shakespeare. I don't know too much about Marlowe, but in Coriolanus, almost exactly the same. The Coriolanus comes back from the wars. Again, he's been fighting against the Goths, the barbarian hordes, protecting Rome from all the infiltrating invaders. When he comes back to Rome, they say, we would like you to be a leader, a ruler. I read Coriolanus a few years ago, and I don't think that they wanted him to be Caesar, but the dilemma in Coriolanus was that to be elevated to this politician, he would have to sit in a skimpy toga, and all of the public would come by and they would admire all of his battle scars. And he would sit there while they would gawk at him and say, oh, where'd you get that one? I got that one, the big whale. Oh, well, where'd you get that one over there? And he refuses to do that. He refuses to be put on display for the common rabble to gawk at. And they come and they tell him, they say, look, Coriolanus, you cannot be a politician unless you go through this little circus. And he said, well, I don't want to be. I don't want to be a spectacle for these common dickheads. It's a refusal to assume the position of power for a good reason, but still. All right, let's look at the greatest literature ever penned, Hamlet. Hamlet is all about this. Like the quintessential question in Hamlet is that Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. His father was the King of Denmark. His father has died. Hamlet wonders, how is it that I am not the King of Denmark when my father, the king, has died and I am the prince? Hamlet, the entire play of Hamlet is a question of, will he assume his responsibility for what is taking place around him? Like, he is the Prince of Denmark. He's been done a terrible wrong. He is the only one who can come to the aid of himself and to grasp the responsibility that is here in his hands waiting for him. Like, a lot of people, I don't know where I got this, but I picked it up somewhere, that a lot of people read, to be or not to be. That is the question. A lot of people read that as, should I act or should I not act? Should I take control of my destiny to be, or shall I just relinquish control and have destiny wash over me? Not to be. That speech, to be or not to be, is quite an existential, do I take control of this life, or do I just, like everyone, life just happens to you. Now this one is a bit vague because I read it many years ago. Antony and Cleopatra, not going to be such a wonderful example because I did read it a long time ago, but Antony, he's not Caesar, because what I remember from the play is that Antony was one of three who were this triumvirate leadership of Rome. Antony, and there were two other fellas who were in charge of ruling Rome, because they didn't want to have one Caesar, because they could see that was so at the whims of at the mercy of these psychopaths. So they wanted to have this three-headed leadership of Rome. And so Anthony, who was a great leader, all of a sudden he was suddenly obsessed with this woman. All right, maybe I'm remembering it a bit vaguely, but the other two rulers of Rome are like, Anthony, we need you to be the ruler. We need you to be a strategist. And all you seem to be doing is chasing after that good piece of Egyptian pussy down there. And meanwhile, you should be in charge of the Roman fleets. Like, what are you doing, man? Running after that Cleopatra chick. Like, you're leaving us hanging here, buddy. Again, I feel that this is Shakespeare's overarching theme. The negligence of the people in power and the refusal of people in power to claim the power and to use it for the betterment, the very thing that they were given the power to do, to improve the society. They neglect it, they are negligent, or they just refuse it. Oh, God damn it, I almost forgot King Lear. That's what King Lear's all about. I mean, there's the old king, he's got 3 daughters, and he says, girls, I'm tired of being king. You 3 girls, you're not going to be kings, but you're going to be ruling this place for me because I'm tired of doing it. And then I'm just going to be carried around in a sedan seat from home to home, being loved and applauded everywhere I go. And you girls are going to do the hard work for me. You see it in several of these plays. All right, not Romeo and Juliet, not Macbeth. Macbeth is actually the very opposite. Macbeth is someone who gains that power without the proper reason for having the power. I don't know if we can make a case for it in Othello. Timon of Athens? I think it's Timon, right? Like Timon rhymes with Simon. Well, even there, he has this massive wealth, and all he does with it is he gives it to his friends, and he throws these elaborate parties, and he wastes all of his wealth celebrating his friends. Many people come to him and they say, look, the reserves are running low, and you need to take responsibility for you can't keep holding these parties when we've got no money to pay for them. That is my little presentation that, I think with, let's say, Edward II as a basis, because I haven't read very much Christopher Marlowe, the idea of the refusal to accept the proper degree of authority. There's the obligation there. You are the king. It is your divine obligation to rule this land, hopefully the best you can. Try to do a good job. Titus Andronicus chooses the worst guy. Anthony and Cleopatra, as far as I was concerned when I read Anthony and Cleopatra, it was like, when a man gets like pussy crazy, he's no good for anything else. Hamlet, stop dithering. Do it. Kill your uncle. He deserves it. And your whore of a mother. All right, so thank you very much. Professor Kennedy, that's my thing for Edward II. And it's Saturday night, and I have to upload the video and edit the video and do all the extras for the video by tomorrow night. So I'll just say goodbye there. And I hope if anybody watched, you got something from it. I really think I'm onto a good idea when it comes to Shakespeare's idea about the obligation of power. What happens if you neglect or refuse the obligation of power? I think that is a critical thing in many of the Shakespearean tragedies. Thanks for watching.